All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Derek Birdsong. I handle product marketing for our Sabre Sonic solutions. We're really excited for this live panel discussion here today around innovations in airline digital experience. So the first thing I'll tell you about this discussion here this afternoon is that this is being broadcast live. And so what that means is we'd really appreciate if you would keep the noise down a little bit and the movement down to a minimum. So this discussion here today is very exciting for us. We're going to be taking questions live, so if you'd like to get a question answered, please submit it on Twitter using the hashtag SabreDX for digital experience. So hashtag SabreDX, and we will submit those questions at the end of the session, and we'll have our panelists read these live. So what we're trying to accomplish here today is understand a bit more about the digital experience and the trends in the marketplace. So we have amazing industry leaders here on our panel today to answer questions around what are the main pain points for travelers, what are they trying to achieve, what issues do they have throughout their journey, what can increase and improved digital engagement with travelers and between airlines can improve the actual margins for airlines, as well as increase and improve customer experience as well. So I'll finally mention that Sabre has partnered with an industry analyst called Skift. This company we partnered with to create a trend report around innovations in airline digital experience, which if you register for the session online, or if you register for the session at the conference, you'll receive a link to that. For everyone else, you can find it on skift.com as well as our social channels. So after the session, I highly recommend reading it and understand a bit more about the insights that we gleaned in doing this research. So at this time, I'll introduce our panel. So behind me here, we have Dennis Shaw from Skift. So Dennis serves as the news editor and reporter for Skift. He was employee number 3 for Skift, and he's been covering the online travel sector, global distribution systems, and airline and hotel distribution for over 15 years. In 2014, Dennis interviewed many of the leading online travel CEOs from around the world, which has turned into Skift's first ebook called The Future of Travel Booking. Dennis prides himself on news scoops and analytical coverage. We're really glad to have his expertise on the panel here today, so I appreciate it, Dennis.
Thanks a lot.
To my left, your right, Justin Warby is the Vice President of Direct Sales for Etihad Airways. He's responsible for direct channels including Etihad.com and the Contact Center. In his role, he also serves as the business sponsor of Etihad's Digital Innovation Program and has been at Etihad for over a decade, serving on multiple roles including country manager, strategy, among many others. To Justin's right is Nikhil Raghavan, the General Manager of Business Transformation for Jet Airways in India, an airline technology expert with over 12 years of industry experience. Nikhil is responsible for managing the complete Sabre platform, from product implementation to a wide variety of operational functions as well. His primary focus is to simplify and streamline business processes across all of Jet Airways with the help of technology and strategic partners. Ian Meeker is the Executive Manager of Commercial Operations for Comair Limited, the listed company of Kulua.com. He's been with the firm for 9 years and is currently responsible for marketing, loyalty, e-commerce, and sales distribution activities. Ian is currently implementing a number of different platforms and products to create a fully integrated, personalized experience for Kulua.com. And at the end down there, Rodrigo Celis is the Vice President of Airline Retailing for Sabre Airline Solutions. An innovator in the digital space, he's focused on continually improving the digital customer experience. Rodrigo has been at Sabre for 19 years, with the last 13 of those focused on developing airline e-commerce solutions. Today, he's responsible for Sabre's full suite of airline retailing solutions, including digital experience, e-commerce, payment platforms, and merchandising. So I'm excited to hear the panel and the discussion and glean these insights from our industry leaders here. So without further ado, I'll kick it off to you, Dennis.
Thanks, Derek. Great to be here. Yes, Skift and Sabre partnered on producing the Skift Trends Report on a hot topic, something that everybody's talking about. How do you use digital to build customer memory and create a customer-centric passenger experience? Let's kick it off with Rodrigo, and then I'll add a few thoughts about the report, and then we'll get right to the panel. So Rodrigo, what do you think are some of the most important things you got out of the report and you think that airlines should take note of?
Yeah, thanks, Dennis. So I think as part of the partnership with Skift and the continued investment and focus from us in terms of customer-centric retailing and digital, one of the things that we wanted to accomplish was to gather new insights, discover new challenges and new trends. So I think as part of the report, when people read it and download it, they'll be able to actually get a lot of clarity around what customers are looking for, what they're willing to pay, and what are some of the technologies required to enable this digital experience. I think when we start thinking about the report and some of the key trends, I think there's a few things that helped us, one, validate our current strategy and our investment strategy, but we also got insight into new trends that we need to keep an eye on. Some of those are, how do we airlines start creating that personal relationship with what we think of invisible travelers? So in the digital space, those consumers that are coming to you but don't actually proactively engage face-to-face with the airline, how do you actually create that personal relationship in the digital space? Insights also from different airlines, I think that was also another valuable part of the report in terms of what are airlines doing to create this customer-centric strategy across the airline. So those, I think, some key insights that will provide, some valuable information to our readers.
Great. One thing that strikes me about the report and its findings is that an underlying theme of it seems to revolve around how can airlines get some love? How can they create some of those aha or wow moments that aren't just about points or miles or booking the seat with extra legroom, but engender loyalty and an emotional attachment to the brand? How can airlines use digital technology to better empower staff, whether it's people in the call center, at the airport, or on the plane, to get closer to customers? When I show up at the airport lounge and they say to me, Mr. Schall, your Johnny Walker Black neat is there waiting for you, or they have my favorite pillow, that works for me and I'll remember it. It's about personalization, and you're going to be hearing a lot more about that today. When I think about the US market, I can think of 3 airlines right off, JetBlue, Virgin America, and Southwest, that have been able to build loyal fan bases and create an emotional attachment to the brand. With Virgin America, they have the power outlets at every seat. They have the on-demand meal ordering. JetBlue has the seatback entertainment, free Wi-Fi, and free snacks. And at Southwest, the flight attendant may introduce the safety instructions by getting on the PA system and saying, my ex-husband, my current boyfriend, and their divorce lawyer is going to show you where the life vest is under the seat. I don't hear people getting off of a JetBlue flight and saying, boy, I love those branded fares. Maybe they do. They do give you more choice. So that is one of the challenges for everyone on the panel and listening on the live stream. How can airlines change and forge a deeper relationship with passengers using digital tools? And what is the proper balance between digital tools and the human touch? The report also lays out some of the basics about reinventing the passenger journey and the digital roadmap. If timing is everything in life, it certainly is for the shopping and booking flow as well. First, airlines need to do a reset and map out the pain points in the passenger journey that they think are most addressable through digital innovation. Improving personalization and the context of offers, as well as understanding price sensitivity and the timing of offers, is key and may vary from airline to airline, from country to country. An offer for a lie flat seat is probably going to work better for the woman about to board a red-eye flight than it is when she returns a few days later on a morning flight. Is it more effective to offer travel insurance at the time of booking when passengers are already paying a good amount, or is it more effective a day or two before the flight when it's a standalone item and looks to be much more palatable? So let's get to the panelists and hear what they have to say about some of these topics and others. I'd like to start with Justin from Etihad. I know you probably want to talk about Nicole Kidman and the advertising campaign, but that's not on the agenda today unless you push it. Seriously, when you're looking at digital at the airline, and whether it's developing your first app, which I think came out in the last couple of weeks, or anything else, do you look at it in isolation, or do you have to gauge how it might affect the whole company? What kind of approach do you take?
Dennis, we just completed a 5-month strategy and visioning piece of work known as the Digital Guest Innovation. What very much is clear from me out of that strategy piece of work is over the next 5 years that we begin a program of work within Etihad called the Digital Innovation Hub, is that it's not just mapping out the customer journey, it's mapping out the technology, it's mapping out the governance and processes within the business, it's mapping out how you actually establish yourself as an organisation to be effectual in this area. Because I do see other airlines or other companies approaching this as a bolt-on to their organisation. You know, you see people being employed as Chief Digital Officer, but if that's just a role that's a bolt-on to an IT organisation, it'll be a failure. So what we're embarking on at Etihad through a well-established program of work is actually to look at what organisational changes we need to make. Because all these digital touch points, whether it's self-service by the guest or via one of our frontline staff, most of them sit across 12 different departments in 3 different divisions within the airline. So if you don't tackle this problem at an organisational level, then the problem will continue to exist, or you won't tackle the problem fast enough.
It must be hard to get buy-in from different departments. Everyone has different priorities.
Everyone has different priorities. So the first step is, for me, the organisational one, coupled then with a program of governance and process change. Once you get the buy-in on those, I think it's a lot palatable investment to move forward on.
Great. Nikhil, Jet Airways. Everyone talks about personalization. We've been talking about it for years. But what challenges does personalization prevent for Jet Airways because of your distinct market that you're in?
Right. Thanks, Dennis. Before we even talk about personalization, just take one step back, and understand, as you mentioned earlier, what does a traveler want today? Yes, we want him to go digital. He needs to be well connected. He's a savvy guy. He knows what he wants. So what we need to give him directly. And that is through personalization. Now, when I look at personalization, I look at how do I define the characteristics of my passenger? Now, the problem that we face, at least in emerging markets, is that 25% of our bookings come direct, which means 75% is coming through the travel agent. Today, in emerging markets, we still see travel agents as dominating. And why are they dominating? Because they're able to give a personalization feel in terms of touch and feel. Some of the emerging markets, especially in Asia, they would like someone to come to their doorstep and give them a ticket. Now that can be done by online, but what online can do is give you anytime, anywhere. And yes, there is that change happening, that integration is happening where the younger audience is getting to innovation. But we continue to see that happening. And because of that, the bookings come through the GDS, we have hardly any information. No mobile numbers, no email addresses. All we know is Mr. X is traveling, Dennis is traveling. Do we know his likes, dislikes? Have we mapped him? Do we have a database of him? Do we have data warehousing where we have information for him? The answer is no. That's because we can't map his journey. So there is a lot of issues around personalization because bookings still come from the traditional channel. That's shifting, but it's shifting at a very, very slow pace. But what happens is customers who come from the direct channel, we're able to personalize offers. As an industry, we're moving from merchandising to retailing. And with so many ancillary offers, with the booking, we're able to personalize and give him what would generally Dennis like when he's traveling, right? He would like to take a travel insurance and maybe pay for a seat because he likes the first aisle seat in the economy. Yeah, that's what we're doing for people who are booking direct. But we still have the big question mark around the 75%.
Wow. Ian, Kulua. One of the findings of the report was that customers aren't necessarily looking for engagement. In fact, Skift did a survey, this was for the US market, and we found that only 2.2% of respondents were interested in buying ancillaries through an app. In your home market, South Africa, you've recently updated your mobile app. But overall, how do you provide value when customers don't necessarily want to be further engaged?
Yeah, look, I think a lot of it's based on what we do with our customers. We research our customers in terms of a lot of feedback. So we have a social media analytics tool. We have a lot of customer surveys, and we run an NPS system, and we run a satisfaction system below that. And what we are able to see through these tools in terms of our customer engagement is we're able to link, overall kind of satisfaction levels to specific pain points in the journey. And then we look at how we're able to attack those pain points in terms of ensuring, at the end of the day, that we can look after those specific needs of our customers. When we first launched Kulua 14 years ago, we had very much an all-inclusive product. And we've taken a lot of time now to break the product down, to give customers a lot more flexibility in terms of the types of products that they're able to purchase. And at the end of the day, we've seen a really nice uptake in terms of really allowing customers a lot of choice. Our next step in the process is a branded fares proposition. So now I think we have customers that some like to ensure that the product's broken down and they have that kind of freedom of choice. Others want to ensure that there's, we do that work for them and we create specific bundles in terms of what they need. We're very clear that we have very different market segments. So, the business traveler who needs to get on and off the plane, who wants to ensure that he gets his seat, wants to get the priority boarding, and wants to commute on a daily basis down in terms of his business travel, has very different needs to a family traveling where baggage and sitting together is important. So I think by providing that type of flexibility, one does ensure that one kind of meets the needs of those customers at whatever given point in time.
Personalization seems to be the holy grail for airlines these days. Yet in a lot of markets around the world, there's a lot of pushback by regulators and governmental authorities. They're afraid that you're going to sell Mac users higher fare than PC users, or you're going to you're going to give the elite certain fares and not for other travelers. So how do you guys approach that in terms of your planning? Is it still full steam ahead with personalization? For anyone?
Before you personalise, you have to know the guest. And the conundrum we have, similar at Etihad, is 25% are direct. Through our digital guest innovation strategy, we've identified ways in which we can get more information from the guest at different touch points. So you have to put investment in an area of building those touch points first. Then you need to have a data warehouse where you can manage this data, bring it in from either Sabre systems or third-party systems, and only then can you even get close to the holy grail of personalisation. So it's very clear for me that personalisation is the nirvana, it's the end state, but there's so much foundational work that needs to go in beforehand. When you get there, though, it's a given a get scenario, particularly with a mobile app. If the first time someone downloads the mobile app, if you said, can I have geolocation, can I send you push notifications, can I have all these 5 different things, you would just go no, 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 and then the app would be 80% redundant. So you ask those questions when it's appropriate, when it's timely, so that you get the appropriate response. So it's a give and a get. I think people will give information if they feel there's value in giving it.
Right. I fully support that. I think from a personalisation perspective, if customers start to see benefit in terms of sharing data with you, then certainly that benefit will start to flow, and they will ensure that at the end of the day they see relevance from your product's perspective, and they can build an affinity with the brand. And for us, it's certainly the route we want to follow around building an ecosystem that ensures that we are able to deliver to specific customers specific types of product. But to Justin's point, it's very much about building an ecosystem of different tools. There's data analysis, there's how you end up scoring your customers, what are the variables you use for scoring. Is it social media influence? Is it a value score? Is it about recency? And so you've got to develop the mechanisms in terms of how you personalize, but then you need all the systems that are going to work with whatever types of scores you create that are going to ensure that down the line throughout your customer journey that you're able to deliver on what that personalization specifically means to the customer. So you need rules engines, you need communications engines, you need retailing engines, you know, so there's a whole ecosystem that really needs to be built around it to ensure that, you know, there's irregular operations, there's check-in, there's all of these points of contact that need to be relevant. So you have to work through that entire journey, work through the customer pain points. But if you're delivering that kind of personalization, I think, you know, customers will come back.
Yeah, and I think also when we think about personalization, it's about doing smart personalization. So you can have a lot of data, and the data you need to dig into it and get insights out of that. That way you can apply context to it and really doing smart personalization to the user. Otherwise you're going to be driving a lot of unnecessary offers or communication when you don't understand the customer context. So that's why it's so critical, I think, when we think about the entire traveler journey, to understand the traveler's context, to properly and smartly personalize the experience for them.
I would add something called wielding of data wealth. And basically what it means is having a data warehouse and putting data of customers is one thing, and the other thing is sustainability. Like if I'm traveling on the aircraft and if I'm done a good job of the customer at the reservation point, am I able to do the same job at check-in, cabin, arrivals, departure? So building the wealth is one thing, and making sure that you've covered him 360-degree is another one.
Do you have to focus on one phase rather than another? Can you do it all?
No, I think the answer would upfront be no. And if I would want to do 360-degree, it would take me years before I'd be really ready to do anything. I may hit behind the curve, but the important thing is, of course, selling, because for an airline, sales is the biggest thing. The idea is selling, check-in. These are some of the bigger items that you would want him to experience in being personalized.
Travelers these days have rising expectations. You talked about things changing in India with, you know, a little bit, you know, millennials wanting being more open to going direct. At your airlines, what are the one or two things that travelers really want? And does it differ from airline to airline? What's high on their wish list? And how could you address them? For anyone.
I would say that, you know, our customers are looking for a little bit more control. You know, they seek out choice. Certainly, you know, our ability to provide a much more easy and convenient experience in terms of how they shop, our ability to inspire them in terms of shopping, so give them a reason to travel, you know, let the specials bubble to the surface, let the opportunities around anniversaries or any other specific events in their lives, you know, let us assist them with that process. You know, travel management through the journey, a strong servicing proposition in terms of how customers get information, a more honest approach. You know, if we delayed, we need to be able to tell customers as quickly as possible what the implications of those delays kind of mean. You know, we have to become a lot more friendly in terms of the types of devices that customers are using in terms of interacting with us. So there's a lot of complexity to how we attack those specific problems. We need to integrate their loyalty. We need to integrate their profiles. So there's quite a lot we need to do in terms of meeting that challenge of you know, how we build a product that you know, will be more appealing to them.
The report talks a little bit about social media as a symptom of airlines' failures almost. You know, we all know how airlines have become very skilled at saying "I'm sorry" on Twitter. Is social media becoming more important to you or less as you innovate digitally?
Etihad took a step around 4 years ago. We had social managed across around 3 parts of the organisation, some in e-commerce, some in marketing, some in our corporate comms team. So we made a conscious decision to actually merge them into one distinct unit. Then we had to decide where it sat, because I think it could sit in a number of areas within a company. So just making that first acknowledgement and step of organisational change to support social, I think was a good one for us. The team's now built out to around 40 people. So it has a number of roles. A lot of it can be operational. Some of it can be brand building. So you've really got to define what you want from social. And set yourself up in that regard. And I'm pretty happy where we've got in social in the last few years.
I think, you know, our marketing people are and I'm part of the marketing team, so, you know, approaching Facebook and approaching Twitter and getting engaged was a really fantastic marketing idea at one point in time, and then all of a sudden we engaged with our customers, but then they started throwing a whole lot of negative sentiment back at us, and we said, oh, we've got a problem, you know, how do we manage this problem? So you're right, it does become a bit of a grumble board, and there is certainly opportunity for damage to one's brand. And, you know, we kind of got to the point where unless we actually did something about the problems, unless we actually met the customer's needs, we would just become a very kind of reactive copy and paste social media kind of response business, as opposed to, you know, how do we manage the sentiment in terms of ensuring that our product is adapted and what we do is adapted to ensure that we can, you know, turn the volume down a little bit.
I think the danger with social is everyone now has a place to vent their anger or their dislike, and each person that vents it there is of equal importance. Whereas traditional channels of communicating with the airline, you could have your SLAs of responses or how you responded based on our value of potentially that guest. But with social, everyone's effectively the same value.
And it lives forever.
Sorry?
And it lives forever.
Yeah, and so it's be careful of not reacting to it, and I think there's one US carrier that might have lost a guitar recently that, so it's a conundrum for the airline. You've got to be in the game. It's how you set yourself to manage it. I think that's important. There's always a lot of talk about how you can monetize social. I don't see anyone there yet, but let's watch the space. I know Facebook and a few others are coming out with hopefully some monetization of it. Jet uses it in certain ways. I'll let Nikhil talk about that. So there is some monetization, but for me it's around managing that voice of the guest and managing the operations, because you let it slide, it could slide out of control.
So just like Etihad, we started about 4 to 5 years ago, and we said, you know, what do we want to do with the social media channel? Oh, let's first target something that's bigger in India, Facebook and Twitter. We said, oh, we built this huge strategy around what we're going to do for the next 12 months, you know, how are we going to do, and it's all based on our marketing campaigns, this, that. The day we went live, I don't remember us implementing any of that strategy. We had to change the strategy completely because it became a guest relations channel. It became a channel where people realized that if they made noise, you know, other people could hear it. And anyway, today's guests are very vocal guests, and you're giving them this powerful tool of social media that allows them to get popular on an airline page. So what happens is that these guys go there, they write around things. We've got people who've come back. Now what we've realized is, oh, this is getting a little bigger, because people have realized if I'm there writing something, I know someone's going to call me back immediately, rather than me sending an email and then maybe after 48 hours they'll come back to me. So this is you know, this has got us into different. But the best part of it is we've understood how it's working. We've got a team behind it, and we've got certain marketing angles added around it. I agree with Justin. I don't see this is supposed. A lot of people talk about it being a monetized channel. I've not seen anything concrete as such up till now, saying that it's been really monetized.
The journalist in me has to ask Justin and Nikhil. You guys are equity partners. Etihad and Jet Airways. So do you share best practices about digital? Is there a lot of collaboration going on?
Yeah, so we have a number of working groups across Etihad Airways partners. For instance, in the e-commerce space, we have what we've named EPIC, the E-commerce Partner Innovation Council. So we meet up every 3 months We bring suppliers in, such as Sabre, to come and talk to us. But we also have a lot of sharing of best practice. There's no other forum I can go to with another carrier and talk about internal strategies about e-commerce. And we have those sort of working groups across various verticals within the company. Social has one, our contact centre team has one, our airport operations team have one. So this is where we're really starting to leverage the benefits of the equity relationship.
I think from Jet's perspective, we attend most of the EPIC meetings, and the best part of it is we found a lot of value. Sitting, like Justin said, sitting across the table and talking about strategies, about things that didn't work or worked for people, it just helps you realize that things get a little easier when you have to take decisions. So it's a very collaborative approach, and the best part of it is we all see value in it.
Great. What is the business case for delivering an improved or best-in-class digital experience? Some things like the increased revenue you get from preferred seats, putting upgrades into your mobile apps might be fairly easy to measure. But what is the business case for creating a more brand loyal passenger? Somebody who likes, who loves following the new indoor maps you have at the airport, or streaming, in-flight entertainment, the kids and adults who like that. What is the business case for creating those kind of wow moments for passengers? And can you measure it? Do you try? For anyone?
Well, we just did that in our program of work with the vision and strategy for DGI. So, of course, the finance people in the organisation want those clear-cut ones: revenue cost. But there's a lot of others that are more intangible as well. Measuring check-in success, in the volume of people that come in and check in online, might seem a weird attribute to be measuring for success as a KPI, but it could lead to reduced queue times at the airport when people are checking in. It could reduce or improve the on-time performance, therefore, of the aircraft. It could enable you to gather more information or contact information about the guest, so in an IROP situation you can communicate. So you've got to draw a varied line of KPIs, from the real hard profit and loss type of KPIs, to the others that are less tangible, to the others which you just know you have to do. So that's an interesting way to get funding, because you're coming at it not just from a pure return business case. But what you do know is things like, the cost of acquisition of customers in the future is only going to get harder. So it's easier well, it's not easy, but you can draw indistinct lines between customer retention versus customer acquisition, and make some estimates of what you think that impact will be over time. But also be aware that some of the big airlines out there are investing heavily in this space. So you've also got then the risk of lagging further behind if you don't invest now.
One thing I haven't heard much talk about is artificial intelligence. So Barry Diller was at a WTTC conference a couple of weeks ago. He said it's going to be the next big thing in online travel. It may take 10 or 20 years, but it's going to be important. Is this something that's on your radar? Is this on your wish list? Is it going to help you better understand the customer?
I think there needs to be a lot more understanding of it. I think, as the abilities of this artificial intelligence start to play themselves out, I think, one then starts to look at a lot more of the use cases. I think where we are, as a business today is like, how do we get that foundation right? Because you need a strong foundation. You need to ensure that, when you get a piece of data, or when you develop a piece of data, that you can actually do something with it. So, our focus is very much on how do we build the ecosystem to ensure that whatever insights we generate, be it through a process that's a little bit more automated, a process where computers and systems start to determine actions that you need to do within the journey, you still need those downline systems to obviously action those be it in the retailing space, be it in the types of products you offer, be it a check-in, in the lounge, wherever that may be. So I think for us it's a little bit premature. It's certainly something we're thinking about, but at this point in time, it's really how we get that solid foundation ready in terms of as data and the quality of data improves and the dimensions of data improve, we're able to facilitate those actions.
I would break artificial intelligence down to something that we would define. Artificial intelligence is a very big word to use, and right now, yeah, it doesn't look realistic. But using biometrics, using RFID in particular manner to identify customers could be the start of some kind of artificial intelligence. And today, airlines are using biometrics. Airlines are using RFID in different ways other than in baggage tags to identify guests. So when the guest comes to the counter, he's already identified, so you don't need to ask his name. You give a wow effect to the customer by saying, "Mr. Dennis, welcome. We'll see you traveling to Los Angeles or some airport." I think maturing this over age will turn from this naive technology to artificial intelligence.
Before we get to a couple questions from Twitter, a quick question. Where do you think we basically are in terms of digital innovation in the airline industry? And how much progress do you think that airlines can make within the next few years to reach parity with or surpass vertical players like Amazon, for example? Where are we at? Where are we going? How quick are we going to get there?
I think it varies by markets. I would suggest the North American, Europe market is probably ahead of the curve. Probably more because of the demographics of those markets. As Nikhil was talking about before, the emerging markets have trailed behind potentially in some of these digital innovation, but they're quickly catching up because in some of these emerging markets, the digital natives wouldn't even think of going on a broadband or a laptop. They'd just go straight to mobile. So the emerging markets are catching up, but in reality, in terms of digital guest innovation as an industry, we're crawling, if not starting to walk.
But I do think that there certainly is a big momentum to change now. I think airlines have realized that, we run a severe risk of disruption in terms of alternate distributors, alternate technologies, causing us to become very much an intermediary in a broader ecosystem. So, I think the pace at which our industry is now thinking about these challenges, the pace at which technology partners like Sabre are looking at the problem and assisting us in how we develop these systems, how we look at customer data, how we're able to action that through the channels, how we're able to sell and improve our selling, all kind of works to and I certainly think within the next 2 to 3 years there's going to be some real fundamental changes that airlines are going to be able to. And I think that the general customer out there who generally has a pretty negative perception on air travel, I think they're going to be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I also think that if you look at other industries like media, entertainment, online retail, their consumers are getting used to some experiences in those verticals, and they're actually expecting the same type of experience or service in the travel industry. So I think those industries are also driving some of the change in the travel industry. When you think about, for example, UI design, years ago, let's say 2-3 years ago, responsive, in many of those verticals, responsive design was, starting to grow. Now it's become more mainstream, and travel is adopting responsive because consumers are actually experiencing a lot of that in other verticals, so they expect that from the travel industry as well.
Rising expectations, right?
Absolutely.
Let's go to the Twitterverse. A question from Miguel in Panama. Maybe Miguel's on the live stream. Hi, Miguel, if you're there. Airlines are on the cusp of making a significant leap in digital. Is the focus going to be more revenue or improved customer service?
I think I answered that in my previous statement. Of course, you're going to have to write the business case on revenue because it's tangible in the business case, but the less tangible elements around customer service have to be in there. And if you think of the guest journey, it's actually in a lot of those servicing touch points where we have the biggest headache at the moment. After someone's bought a ticket, checked in online maybe not, the first time we might know about them is at the check-in counter. What happened in between? After the check-in counter, you might just encounter them a few hours later on the plane. So there's these gaps where we lose control over the customer journey that we need to close. So that the business case has to look at those.
I think added to that, there certainly is a huge opportunity to, because our businesses are really boiled down to the bottom line profits that we're generating, and you can attack that in two ways. You can attack that at a revenue level, and you can obviously improve your revenues, which we would, certainly want to do. But then there's also the efficiencies that a lot of these technologies create for you in terms of how you can reduce the costs in your business, so how you can have less check-in agents, how you can automate baggage processes, and often in that automation there's no queue or less queuing for customers, so you improve your customer service at the end of the day. So I think there's benefits all round, both at a revenue and at a cost level, and ultimately if we do attack customer service, it means repeat business, and one extra sector out of a customer who potentially just buys on price can mean a significant difference to your business in the long term.
I think customer service and revenue go hand in hand. As I mentioned, we're doing 25% direct. How do I make that 25-50%? Which means I need to have a differentiator, and yield is always low in these emerging markets, and diluting yield further is something that will take you straight down. The other way of trying to get customers to come direct is to provide that additional customer service, that additional personalization, the additional, it's all the add-ons that you bring it, where customer sees value and then says, oh, why should I go to a travel agent? When I go online, I get all these value adds.
Last question we have is from Stephen in Las Vegas. I don't know if Stephen's in the room or out there on Twitter. Is it a good time to be a digital commerce leader, given the new technology and tools that are now available?
It's probably a very challenging.
Are we assuming that we're digital commerce leaders in answering that?
Stephen, what do they mean?
All I can say is that it's a very challenging time. You have to work through so many different. I think we're a business, and we've had a lot of challenges ourselves in how we actually reorder our technology stack. We've built a lot of complexity in our business. Our market has been difficult from a pure airline growth perspective, so we've developed a lot of other businesses in the travel verticals, that support what we do. We've got other opportunities with loyalty-based companies. So we've built a very complicated technology stack where we're managing a whole lot of different flows. So we've been working hard with our technology partners to really simplify what it is that we're doing, to decouple the engines and allow us a little bit more control in that front end. So we've had to work through a tremendous amount of different scenarios. We see a path of a lot more flexibility in the product, a lot more control, because I think every market has its own unique differences. So I think in terms of the question, it's quite a challenging time, but I think it's an opportune time because there's a huge amount that's happening, and I think there's a lot that we can do now to make a fundamental difference to air travel.
There's a lot of opportunity and rising expectations, so you play in that space.
And some grey hair.
Anybody else?
I think also how an airline thinks about the investment in this area is important. Previously, Etihad, we've been very focused on our hard product or our frontline service to give that 5-star feeling as an airline. But do we do that from a digital service at the moment? I would argue not. So yeah, the rising expectation is there. But then I think as a business, we've also got to realise, well, will that signature moment be the butler on board our 380 residents, or will it be a digital signature moment? So internally in an airline, you've got to rethink where you're investing for the future, I believe.
Okay. I want to thank members of the panel for their participation, our global audience on the live stream, the people here. in Las Vegas. I'm sure this is an issue that we're going to be coming back to over and over again in the next few years. I just wanted to give you a reminder that Sabre is going to be posting the live stream on the Sabre channel on YouTube, so you'll be able to revisit your favorite parts, the infamous parts, if there were any. And thanks a lot. And I'll hand it over to Derek.
Thanks, Dennis. Can we have a round of applause for the panel, please?